The strictures of Renaissance drama demanded that Shylock be a villain, and as such, patently unable to show even a drop of compassion for his enemy. A 16th century audience would not expect Shylock to exercise mercy, therefore it is up to the Christians to do so. Once she has turned Shylock's greatest weapon, the law, against him, Portia has the opportunity to give freely of the mercy for which she so beautifully advocates. Instead, she backs Shylock into a corner, where she strips him of his blood, his estate, and his dignity, forcing him to kneel and beg for mercy. Given that Antonio decides not to seize Shylock's goods as punishment for conspiring against him, we might consider Antonio to be merciful, but we may also question whether it is merciful to return to Shylock half of his goods, only to take away his religion and his profession. By forcing Shylock to convert, Antonio disables him from practicing usury, which according to Shylock's reports was Antonio's primary reason for berating and spitting on him in public. Antonio's compassion, then, seems to stem as much from self-interest as from concern for his fellow man. Mercy, as delivered in The Merchant of Venice, never manages to be as sweet, selfless, or full of grace as Portia presents it. Portia's intrusion in Antonio's trial would make both Antonio's and Shylock's trials mistrials under the law. Portia masqueraded herself as a male judge and was allowed to break the law to save a fellow Christian from going through an inhumane but fair trial. Portia at the last second makes use of her woman's cunning by seizing the court and bending the law. She has the courage to bend the law and the cleverness to mask the wrong through a juristic trick, for which she received the thankful recognition from the Doge and his learned Senate, the more so because she assumed upon herself the responsibility of this perverted decision. She knew very well she was bending the law to help herself. What is also interesting about the trial is that the Doge of the court and the Senate allowed Portia to preside over the trial. Shylock should have gotten a fair trial. That would have the Doge be the one presiding over the court, with no outside intrusion of any kind, including irrelevant loopholes that Portia found. Saving Antonio from the bloody death at the last possible second was more a save for the audience than it was for Antonio. It would have made logical sense that Antonio would have to suffer for his choices, but it seems that Shakespeare added the twist intentionally to avoid a gruesome death for his audience. Portia's actions, however, were not in accordance with the law, nor were her reasons sufficient enough that her conclusions were right under the law. Antonio, a wealthy Venetian merchant who occasionally lends money but never charges interest. Since his main source of income is from his merchant ships, he is the merchant of the play's title. Bassanio. He is a typical Elizabethan lover and nobleman who is careless with his money. Hence he has to borrow from Antonio so that he can woo Portia in style. Portia. As one of Shakespeare's most intelligent and witty heroines, she is famous for her beauty and her wealth, and she is deeply anguished that she must marry only the man who chooses the single casket of 3 which contains her portrait. Shylock. Shylock is an intelligent businessman who believes that since he is a moneylender, charging interest is his right. To him it makes good business sense. Gratiano. He is the light-hearted, talkative friend of Bassanio, who accompanies him to Belmont. There he falls in love with Portia's confidant, Nerissa. Jessica. She is the young daughter of Shylock. She falls in love with Lorenzo, and disguised as a boy, she elopes with him.
This soliloquy by Shylock presents the anger and revenge he has towards Antonio for all the mockery and humiliation he has done to him. Shylock argues that just because he is a Jew and Antonio is a Christian doesn't give Antonio the right to disgrace his faith to the whole society. Shylock continues his point by depicting the physical and emotional similarities that Jews and Christians share. Shylock states that a Jew has eyes, hands, organs, limbs, senses, affections, and passions just like everyone else. In addition, Shylock also states the common weaknesses that both Christians and Jews suffer from, such as getting hurt by the same kind of weapons, sicknesses, and cold winters and hot summers. To conclude his argument, Shylock points out the type of reaction that a Jew or a Christian will do once a crime is committed against them, and that is revenge. That is exactly what Shylock intends to do against Antonio. After receiving nothing but bad treatment and lack of respect from Antonio, Shylock is determined to get his revenge using the bond, which states that Shylock would be able to get a pound of flesh from any part of Antonio's body.